This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, my first guest tonight is Frank Huguenard. He is going to be talking to us about his psychic experience, his paranormal experiences, and much more. He holds a degree in science from Purdue University, has spent a lifetime investigating and researching his own paranormal and psychic experiences, and has produced 3 documentary films on science and spirituality. Now, amongst other things, he is an inventor, the executive director of a humanitarian relief organization, an organic farmer, and has operated his own gourmet pizza restaurant. His website, www.beyondmefilms.com. And Frank, welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Rob.
Frank, what started you on your quest investigating the paranormal and psychic experiences and getting into metaphysics and spirituality?
So when I was, a kid, I've always had experiences that were well outside the norm. I remember I was doing a paper route with my brother, and he was a few blocks away from me at the time, and I got this flash that he had his hand mauled by a dog.
Ooh.
And I saw him 10 minutes later, and there, sure enough, he was holding his hand, and he had been bitten by a big dog. There was another time where I had there was this place I used to hang out a lot as a kid. I was 10 or 12 years old, and I had this dream that it was on fire. And my family drove by the next day, and sure enough, the fire trucks were hosing it down. And I've had a series of experiences like this my whole life. I would never call myself a psychic per se, but when you have verifiable experiences, over decades, you start to realize that there's something beyond what what we're taught in schools and what we experience here on the physical plane. And so it's always been something very curious to me. And when you have those own experiences, your own experiences of the metaphysical world, it really opens your mind to when other people also have experiences they talk about. And so you become quite open-minded. And I've always investigated trying to find out exactly, what's behind the scenes, so to speak.
How do you conduct your investigations?
Well, for me, like I said, I've been fairly open-minded. And so but then again, I'm a scientist, and a scientist, which I'd like to get into in a bit, is really, the basic definition of what a scientist is, at least to me, is just somebody who's seeking knowledge and trying to find the truth. It's a much broader definition than the modern version, but I've got a very scientific mind. I always want to know how things work, and so my investigations have been fairly much looking at all the great traditions of the world. I am very open-minded, and I look at basically just about anything from remote viewing to, spoon bending or anything else that's outside the normal. And, with a fairly skeptical eye, because if you're gullible and you believe everything, then you're going to get yourself in a lot of trouble. But I'm just very open-minded, and I've looked at all the different sort of schools of thought and gone about it that way.
Is there any common thread between all the schools of thought and what people perceive to be the paranormal?
Well, that's what I think. But to me, you have to be able to drill down deep enough, and of course there is a convergence when you look at especially Eastern mysticism and quantum mechanics and quantum physics, where they actually meet at a point where there is some sort of unified substratum that's a field that underlies the entire existence, which is what all the major religions say, and that's what modern physics says.
So where does that leave the paranormal? Is it provable? Is it real? Is it in the realm of science, or is it in the realm of spirituality, metaphysics? What is it?
Well, this is where I wanted to go with this. Is exactly what is science. Science has been around for thousands and thousands of years. If you just look at what the definition of science is, there's in many traditions around the world, God is said to be omniscient, and which means all-knowing. So the scient part of the word is the Latin for to know, and so all science has ever meant is a way of acquiring knowledge, as well as the body of knowledge that whatever techniques you've used have been used to acquire the knowledge.
All right, Frank, you and I have to take a 2-minute commercial break. Please stand by. Exonation, Frank Huguenard is our special guest. His website is www.beyondmefilms.com, and Frank and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, a guiding light spelled LITE.com to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
Exonation, Frank Huguenard is our special guest this hour. His website is www.beyondmefilms.com. And we're talking about, well, science and the paranormal. And Frank, before we went to the commercial break, we started actually getting into that, correct? So why don't you take us through the scientific aspect, or what you believe to be the scientific aspect when it comes to the paranormal?
Absolutely. So as I was saying, science has been around for thousands and thousands of years. We wouldn't have been able to build cities and do agriculture, do all the metallurgy that we've been doing without science. And there's dozens of different forms of science that have been applied over the years: Platonic science, Socratic science, sophistic science, etc. And 400 years ago, a version of science evolved. Sir Francis Bacon and Galileo and Newton, all these great geniuses came up with the modern scientific method, which most people these days correlate with the word science. But what I found, especially after doing my last film, and by the way, all my films are free, available to the public. You just go to my website and watch them. What I found out when I did my last film is how much science, especially modern science, is very similar to how religions work. And science is based on faith. There's a faith that the modern scientific method itself is a sound method. And what people do who are scientists is very similar to what religious people do, in the sense that when something is outside of their particular discipline or methodology, they call it pseudoscience, which is just like this one person from one religious discipline saying, well, no, your path to God is not, that's pseudo-religion. My path is the only path. And this is the same thing that scientists do. And so if you can get beyond that notion that modern science isn't the only way to the truth, that there are other methods of scientific discovery that are available, you can start looking at older versions of science. In particular, what my last film, Beyond Reason, actually is based on is something called Vedanta, which is a 4,000-year-old science of self-discovery, which is entirely based on basically using your mind as the laboratory, as a way of divining or, intuiting the information that you want to find out. And so Vedanta, which is from India thousands and thousands of years ago, is basically a science specifically for the paranormal.
All right, so in the Western world where we are now, where does the paranormal fit? Does it fit in the realm of the probable? Can it be scientifically proven? Or do you think it'll ever fit into the scientific world?
I think the way that the modern scientific method was devised, by definition, it can't possibly fit into the scientific world, because the scientific world is a materialistic. In the 1800s, they called it positivism. It was this kind of science, and it could only be used on the physical plane. And so anything that's paranormal, or in other words, metaphysical, something that's beyond the physical plane, can't possibly be proven scientifically.
So how do we explain the sights, the sounds, the experiences that people have that they truly believe are paranormal?
Well, again, how do you explain me having this vision of my brother getting his hand mauled by a dog? Science can't possibly, and this is what led me down this path.
Well, what about ESP? What about telekinesis? ESP has been proven by the scientific community; it's accepted.
Right, and my experience was ESP. But when you say it's been proven, how in science there has to be. Basically, you start off with a series of assumptions and definitions and postulates and hypotheses, and then you come up with a theory, and then you use methods and techniques